All right, this is your heart that you will be dissecting today. You have two sides of the heart. You have the front side, and this would be the right side of the heart, the left side of the heart, and this is the back side of the heart. Now, if you're not certain as to which is the front side and which is the back side, there's an easy way to tell, and that is to look for the coronary arteries and veins. And the coronary arteries and veins make a nice diagonal across the front side of the heart. This is the side that you want facing you when you are making your cuts. Some of you will have a more fatty heart, and there will be much more of a yellow, whitish, globby area around here as well, but you can have to look for the little valley that the coronary arteries and veins make along the heart. So the first thing that you're going to do is observe these at the top of the heart, and then you're going to look at the top of the heart. The top of the heart, you can see, has several openings for the right atrium, the left atrium, the aorta, and the pulmonary arteries that leave the heart to go to the lungs. The first one you're going to work with is the right atrium, and you know where the start of the right atrium is because of these sort of darker ear-shaped flaps. You have one that's on the right atrium and also one that's on the left atrium. So the first thing that I would like you to do is to take your finger and kind of poke your finger down into the opening of the right atrium, all the way down into the left ventricle. And you might even be able to feel the tricuspid valve. And you can see that my finger is now pushing along the bottom side of that right ventricle. Once you have done that, I want you to take a popsicle stick. And while my assistant grabs my popsicle stick, I'll show again with the finger where that end there is. So what I would like you to do once you have your popsicle stick is to poke it back through the right atrium, because now I've made a larger opening with my finger, and poke it all the way down to the bottom so that you can see the little indentation that the popsicle stick makes at the bottom. The reason you're putting a stick all the way down to the bottom of the heart is because you're going to use this as a guide to cut along. So you are going to now actually cut open the right atrium and the right ventricle, and you're using the stick as a guide to cut along. Cut's very easy. The scissors are sharp. And when you open it up, you can see the two chambers of the heart. You can see this bottom area is the right ventricle. This top area right here you can see is the right atrium. And right here with this webbing, this is the tricuspid valve. You could see that if the blood were to try to flow back in the opposite direction, right, the tricuspid valve would close and the blood would not be able to flow backwards into the right atrium. The next thing I want you to do then is try and locate the pulmonary arteries. Now these, in my opinion, are the hardest to locate. We need to look for the artery and the pulmonary valve. You can see a little bit of the pulmonary valve that is down here. And again, it's easiest if you start with your finger and try to find where that comes out. And here you can see is one of the pulmonary arteries that then takes blood back to the heart. So again, I would like you to take your popsicle stick and from the inside of the right ventricle, try to poke through until you come out of that opening. You need to be really careful that you make the right cut at this point, because oftentimes people would mistake the aorta, which you see right here, as the pulmonary artery. So again, I want you to use the stick, and I want you to cut along the stick, use it as a guide, and open that up. And here you can now see, right, the inside of the pulmonary artery, which then takes the deoxygenated blood to the lungs to become oxygenated. Next, we're going to work on the left side of the heart. Again, you're going to look for the ear flap. And again, it's easiest if you go with your finger first, and you are going to push your finger down into the left atrium, all the way down into the left ventricle until you get to the very, very bottom. And now it's harder to see my finger poking down at the bottom because the wall of the left ventricle is much thicker than that of the right ventricle. Now I would like you to take your stick and poke it down through the bottom just like you did on the right side until you get down to the very bottom. With the stick you can make a little bit of an indentation, you can feel it. And you want to make sure you're all the way down there at the bottom. Then you take your scissors again and you're going to cut through the left side of the heart. Using the stick as a guide the entire time, I can feel the stick on one side of the scissors as I'm cutting down. And here you can now see how thick the walls of the left side of the heart is when compared to that of the right side. You actually have a ruler where you're going to be taking some measurements on the thickness of the sides of the heart. Right. Here you can see the inside, and here you can see a really good example of how that valve works. When blood is flowing down, right, the valve lays down flat. But if blood tries to go back in the other direction, you can see that it opens up like a parachute, right, blocking the blood from going back into the left atrium in this case. And you can see it goes all the way around. I can take my finger here, and there's a little piece of it here as well. The last cut that I would like you to make is how the blood leaves the heart, now oxygenated blood, and that is via the aorta, which is behind the flap here. And now you can see, you can put your finger through, and you can see it now coming out of the aorta. So again, you're going to stick your popsicle stick in there as a guide, and then you're going to cut along that popsicle stick. And now you have opened up the aorta. You can see how big and thick, all right, that artery is. All right, it's the largest artery that you have. So that completes all the incisions, or I should say cuts, that you have to make in your heart. There are more details that you have to follow in your procedure. This was just an example of all the different cuts that you have to make. Just to repeat, you need to make sure that you have the front side of the heart by looking for the coronary arteries and veins that go diagonally. At the top of the heart, you're going to look for the right ear flap, which marks the entrance to the right atrium. You're going to stick the stick down in the right atrium, and you're going to make your first incision or your first cut all the way down. And then you're going to look for the pulmonary artery that leaves the heart, and you're going to make your second cut. Your third cut is again looking for that ear flap on the left side. Put the popsicle stick all the way down until you get down to the very bottom. And you're going to take your scissors and make your third cut, which exposes the left side of the heart. And then your last cut is through the aorta when the blood leaves. And that last cut, I'm stuck in the aortic valve, right, is through the aorta, and you can see how it comes through the aorta here, and that is your last cut that you would make there.